Welcome back now. Former President Donald Trump's legal team just met with the Department of Justice officials a few hours ago. The Washington Post is reporting that they are arguing against charging the former president in the federal probe over his handling of classified documents.
Now, the meeting comes as special counsel Jack Smith nears a decision in the case. Former Trump attorney Timothy Palatore says that he would not be surprised if the former president does not ever face charges. Palatore, who resigned from Trump's legal defense team a couple weeks ago over what he called internal issues with the legal team, says additional hurdles will make a decision more complicated. And here is Palatore with more on that.
I think that this is a case where you have to evaluate every case based on what are the facts in the law and is it something that's provable. But then there's also all of the other atmospherics of, is this something that from a discretion point of view, is this something where a prosecution makes sense?
Also, Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz and noted tort lawyer John Coale wrote this for the Washington Times, quote, Trump's criminal indictment on declassified documents has no legitimate basis. They say if Trump's team alleges the former president declassified the documents that were taken to Mar-a-Lago before he left office, that will raise several issues that will complicate the federal government's potential case against the former president, dealing with the separation of powers, the actual law, and executive privilege. Both Dershowitz and Coale say based on what is known now, the government will have a hard time, they say, proving beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Trump willfully crossed this line, that line being that he illegally possessed classified documents on purpose. And with us now, noted attorney John Coale. He wrote that piece with Alan Dershowitz. Great to have you with us here, John.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, we hear Professor Dershowitz say this on this show and other shows all the time, that a grand jury, they can indict a ham sandwich. Now, you talk about this as well, and you write that even if this does happen, the next phases become more difficult for the prosecution. And if there were a conviction, the fact that there would obviously be an appeal raises even more issues. Talk to us about that.
Yes, the President of the United States, he can declassify anything, anytime, anywhere he wants. And until Congress or somebody changes that, it's the way it is. And he claims he declassified these documents before he left the White House, and that's all we have. There's no evidence. There's some tape running around that nobody apparently has heard, but there are rumors that there's a tape where he says something different. These documents, if we believe Mr. Trump, which I do, he declassified them when he was President of the United States, which he can.
John, I'm glad you brought up the tape because we saw Congressman Jamie Raskin talking about that CNN report about the alleged audio recording of Trump saying he may have had classified documents. Here's part of what he said on CNN just yesterday.
Well, apparently the recording also reflects Donald Trump's knowledge that he had not declassified the document, so he knew that it was still classified, and that's an additional element of importance to this recording. Can
you explain why that's an additional element of?
Well, for a while, at least, there was a half-hearted effort to claim by Donald Trump that he could just magically declassify, telepathically or mentally.
So Raskin's out on CNN talking that this will have an impact on the DOJ case. Johnny neglects to mention that no one's found this document, that's purported in this audio tape. And isn't that really what this is about, though? This is about getting the soundbite, not necessarily what your piece alludes to, not anything that could ever stick on appeal or whatnot, but they get this type of coverage now on a presidential candidate.
Well, Jamie Raskin magically thinks he knows what's on the tape, which he hasn't listened to. Nobody at CNN's listened to. We don't know where it was said, when it was said, or anything like that. So it's ridiculous at this point. And even if he said it, he could have been sitting around a golf club just, throwing stuff out to the boys. Who knows? But I do know that he can declassify anything he wants to, and that goes to the President of the United States. And now they're looking at the Espionage Act, but everybody forgets that Hunter Biden was driving the car in and out of the garage, and he could have been on the cell phone to China, for the Lord's sake. So we're talking about really serious stuff in the Biden case because they were classified. He had no power to declassify. So, you know, of course, we don't hear about any of that.
No, we don't.
Just hear about accusations from tapes that nobody's heard
Right.
against Donald Trump.
It really is
nuts.
amazing, John, to see, you know, I think it was CNN that first reported this. I first read it in a Reuters report, and I'm reading like the third paragraph, and it says, Reuters has not independently confirmed the existence of these tapes, nor has CNN or anyone at CNN actually listened to the tapes. It really boggles the mind. But to your point, John, you talk about these leaks. You hear so much about Jack Smith's special counsel investigation into the Mar-a-Lago documents. You don't hear anything about the Bidens. Are you concerned? There does seem to be not only a two-tiered system of justice in this country, but also a two-tiered system of leaks, because we only hear about leaks as they pertain to Donald Trump, never about anybody else.
Well, that's true, and I've represented 3 people in front of the Jack Smith's bunch, and it's very political. I mean, you know, it's one-sided, and they don't want to hear the rest.
No, they don't seem to want to hear the rest. Unfortunately, what happens is a lot of people lose faith in our justice system. They lose faith in these investigators, and that's really, you know, when we start to see the country go in the wrong direction.
Absolutely.
People do not trust these investigators, do not trust the process, and we're left to wonder what's really going on. But thank you for being here with us, John, and great piece with Professor Dershowitz. Everyone should check it out in the Washington Times, and stay tuned. We'll be watching very closely to see what comes up next in this Mar-a-Lago documents case. John, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.